peals a calm, inexorable voice. This is the world from which thy yearnings came.
Good morning. So we're continuing Savitri's entry into the darkness and her debate with death And we've come to Book 10, Canto 2, the Gospel of Death and Vanity of the Ideal. In the last canto, we saw that the darkness was beginning to fade, to lighten. And there, in that early twilight it was the early morning twilight of the gods, and there was in the early light, she was envisioning these ideal forms, but they were very fleeting. Nothing stayed, nothing remained for long, but there was these beautiful forms and also just these feelings of delight, but nothing lasted. And towards the end of that canto, we see that for Savitri, even the somber face of death was beginning to take on a new appearance. And the pain and suffering also became like an undertone of bliss. Getting lost here. So see if I can just read a little of that. Even the dreadful majesty of death's face. This is about 2/3 of the way down on page 605. Even the dreadful majesty of death's face and its somber sadness could not darken nor slay the intangible luster of those fleeting skies. The somber shadow, sullen, implacable, made beauty and laughter more imperative. Enhanced by his gray, joy grew more bright and dear, his dark contrast edging ideal sight, deepened unuttered meanings to the heart. Pain grew a trembling undertone of bliss, and transience immortality's floating hem. A moment's robe in which she looked more fair, its antithesis sharpening her divinity. So now we'll continue in Canto 2, and let's see, perhaps Tinika, would you like to start?
Canto 2, the Gospel of Death and Vanity of the Ideal. Then pealed the calm, inexorable voice, abolishing hope, cancelling life's golden truth. Fatal its accents smote the trembling air. That lovely world swam thin and frail, most like some pearly, evanescent farewell gleam on the faint verge of dusk in moonless eves. Prisoner of nature, many-visioned spirit, thought's creature in the ideal's realm, enjoying thy unsubstantial immortality, the subtle, marvelous mind of man has feigned. This is the world from which thy yearnings came. When it would build eternity from the dust, Man's thought paints images, illusion rounds, prophesying glories it shall never see. It labors delicately among its dreams. Behold this fleeing of light tasseled shapes, aerial raiment of unbodied gods, a rapture of things that never can be born. Hope chants to hope, a bright immortal choir. Cloud satisfies cloud, phantom to longing phantom leans sweetly, sweetly is clasped or sweetly chased. This is the stuff from which the ideal is formed. Its builder is thought, its base the heart's desire, but nothing real answers to their call.
Thank you.
The ideal dwells not in heaven, nor on the earth, a bright delirium of man's ardor of hope, drunk with the wine of its own fantasy. It is a brilliant shadow's dreamy trails. Thy vision's error builds the azure skies. Thy vision's error drew the rainbow's arc. Thy mortal longing made for thy soul. These angels in thy body thou callest love, who shape his wing from thy emotions' hues. In a ferment of thy body has been born, and with the body that houses it must die. It is a passion of thy earning cells. It is flesh that calls to flesh to serve his lust. It is thy mind that seeks an answering mind and dreams a while that it has found its mate. It is thy life that asks a human pup to uphold its weakness lonely in the world, or feeds its hunger on another's life. A beast of prey that pauses in its sprawl, it crouches under a bush in a splendid flower to seize a heart and body for its food. This beast thou dreamest immortal and a god.
Thank you.
O human mind, vainly thou torturest an hour's delight to stretch through infinity's long void and fill its formless, passionless gulfs, persuading the insensible abyss to lend eternity to perishing things, and tricks the fragile movement of thy heart with thy spirit faint of immortality. All here emerges born from nothingness. Encircled, it lasts by the emptiness of space, a while upheld by an unknowing force, then crumbles back into its parent naught. Only the mute alone can forever be. In the alone there is no room for love. In vain to clothe love's perishable mud, thou hast woven on the immortal's borrowed loom the ideal's gorgeous and unfading robe. The ideal never yet was real made. Imprisoned in form that glory cannot live, into a body shut it breathes no more.
Thank you.
Intangible, remote, forever pure, a sovereign of its own brilliant void. Unwillingly it descends to earthly air, to inhabit a white temple in man's heart. In his heart it shines rejected by his life, immutable, bodiless, beautiful, grand, and dumb. Immobile on its shining throne it sits, Dumb it receives his offering and his prayer. It has no voice to answer to his call, no feet that move, no hands to take his gifts. Aerial statue of the nude idea, virgin conception of a bodiless God. Its light stirs man, the thinker, to create an earthly semblance of diviner things. Its hued reflection falls upon man's acts. His institutions are its cenotaphs. His signs, his dead conventions with its name. His virtues don the ideal sky robe, and a nimbus of the outline of its face. He hides their littleness with the divine name.
Thank you. Yet insufficient.
Yet insufficient is the bright pretense to screen their indigent and earthly make, an earthy make. Earth only is there, and not some heavenly source. If heavens there are, they are veiled in their own light. If a truth eternal somewhere reigns unknown, it burns in a tremendous void of God. For truth shines far from the falsehoods of the world. How can the heavens come down to unhappy earth, or the eternal lodge in drifting time? How shall the ideal tread earth's dolorous soil, where life is only a labor and a hope, a child of matter and by matter fed, a fire flaming low in nature's grate, a wave that breaks upon a shore in time, a journey's toilsome trudge with death for goal. The avatars have lived and died in vain. Vain was the sage's thought, the prophet's voice. In vain is seen the shining upward way.
Thank you.
Earth lies unchanged beneath the circling sun. She loves her fall, and no omnipotence her mortal imperfection can erase. Force on man's crooked ignorance heaven's straight line, or colonize a world of death with gods. O traveler in the chariot of the sun, high priestess in thy holy fancy shrine, who with a magic ritual in earth's house worships ideal and eternal love. What is this love thy thought has deified? The sacred legend and immortal myth, it is conscious yearning of thy flesh, it is glorious burning of thy nerves, a rose of dream splendor petalling thy mind, a great red rapture and torture of thy heart, a sudden transfiguration of thy days, it passes and the world is as before. A ravishing edge of sweetness and of pain, a thrill in its yearning makes it seem divine, a golden bridge across the roar of the years, a cord tying thee to eternity.
Thank you.
And yet, how brief and frail, how soon is spent this treasure wasted by the gods on man, this happy closeness as of soul to soul, this honey of body's companionship, this heightened joy, this ecstasy in the veins, this strange illumination of the sense. If Satyavan had lived, love would have died, but Satyavan is dead and love shall live. A little while in thy sad breast, until his face and body fade on memory's wall, where other bodies, other faces come. When love breaks suddenly into the life, at first man steps into the world of sun. In his passion he feels his heavenly element, but only a fine sunlit path of earth, the marvelous aspect took of heaven's outburst.
The snake is there and the worm in the heart of the rose. A word, a moment's act can slay the god. Precarious is his immortality. He has 1,000 ways to suffer and die.
Thank you.
Love cannot live by heavenly food alone. Only on sap of earth can it survive. For thy passion was a sensual want refined, a hunger of the body and the heart. Thy want can tire and cease or turn elsewhere. Thy want can tire and cease or turn elsewhere. Or love may meet a dire and pitiless end, by bitter treason, or wrath with cruel wounds separate, or thy unsatisfied will to others depart. A dull indifference replaces fire, or an endearing habit imitates love. An outward and uneasy union lasts on the routine of a life's compromise, where once the seed of oneness had been cast into a semblance of spiritual ground by a divine adventure of heavenly powers, two strife, constant associates without joy, two egos straining in a single leash, two minds divided by their jarring thoughts, two spirits disjoined, forever separate.
Thank you.
Thus is the ideal falsified in man's world. Trivial or somber, disillusion comes. Life's harsh reality stares at the soul. Heaven's hour adjourned flees into bodiless time. Death saves thee from this and saves Satyavan. He now is safe, delivered from himself. He travels to silence and felicity. Call him not back to the treacheries of earth and the poor petty life of animal man. In my vast tranquil spaces, let him sleep in harmony with the mighty hush of death, where love lies slumbering on the breast of peace. And thou, go back alone to thy frail world, chastise thy heart with knowledge, unhood to see, thy nature raised into clear living heights, the heaven bird's view from unimagined peaks. For when thou givest thy spirit to a dream, soon hard necessity will smite thee awake. Purest delight began, and it must end.
Thank you. Okay.
Thou too shalt know, thy heart no anchor swinging, thy cradled soul moored in eternal seas. Vain are the cycles of thy brilliant mind. Renounce, forgetting joy and hope and tears. Thy passionate nature in the bosom profound of a happy nothingness and wordless calm, delivered into my mysterious rest. One with my fathomless nihil all forget. Forget their fruitless spirit's waste of force. Forget the weary circle of thy birth. Forget the joy and the struggle and the pain. The vague spiritual quest which first began when worlds broke forth like clusters of fire flowers, and great burning thoughts voyaged through the sky of mind and time, and its eons crawled across the vast, and souls emerged into mortality.
Thank you.
But Savitri replied to the dark wall, dangerous musics now thou findest, O death. melting thy peace into harmonious pain, and flutest alluringly to tried hopes, thy falsehood mingle with sad train of truth, but I forbid thy voice to slay my soul. My love is not a hunger of the heart, my love is not a craving of thy place. It comes to me from God's to God's returns. Even in all that life and man have marred, a whisper of divinity still is heard. A breath is spelled from the eternal sphere, allowed by heavens and wonderful to men. A sweet fire rhythm of passion chant to love. There is a hope in its wild infinite cry. It rings with calling from forgotten heights, and when its strain are hushed to high-winged souls, in their empyrean its burning breath survives beyond the rapturous core of suns that flame forever pure in skies unseen, a voice of the eternal ecstasy.
Thank you.
I shall behold my great sweet bird put off the dire disguise of the gods, unveil from terror and disrobe from sin. Appeased we shall draw near our mother's face, we shall cast our candid souls upon her lap. Then shall we clasp the ecstasy we chase. Then shall we shudder with the long-sought God. Then shall we find the heaven's unexpected strain. Not only is there hope for Godhead's pure, the violent and darkened deities leap down from the one breast in rage to find what the white gods had missed. They too are safe. A mother's eye are on them, and her arms stretched out in love desire her rebel sons. One who came, love, and lover and beloved, eternal, built himself a wondrous field and wove the measures of a marvelous dance.
Thank you.
There in its circles and its magic turns, attracted he arrives, repelled he flees. In the wild devious promptings of his mind, he tastes the honey of tears and puts of joy, repenting, and his laughter and his wrath, and both are a broken music of the soul, which seeks out reconciled its heavenly rhyme. Ever he comes to us across the years, bearing a new sweet face that is the old. His bliss laughs to us, or it calls concealed, like a far-heard, unseen, entrancing flute, from moonlit branches in the throbbing woods, tempting our angry search and passionate pain. Disguised, the lover seeks and draws our souls. He named himself for me, grew Satyavan, for we were man and woman from the first, the twin souls born from one undying fire. Did he not dawn on me in other stars?
Thank you.
How has he, through the thickets of the world, pursued me like a lion in the night, and come upon me suddenly in the ways, and seized me with his glorious golden leap. Unsatisfied, he yearned for me through time, sometimes with wrath and sometimes with sweet peace, desiring me since first the world began. He rose like a wild wave out of the floods, and dragged me helpless into seas of bliss. Out of my curtained past his arms arrive. They have touched me like the soft, persuading wind. They have plucked me like a glad and trembling flower, and clasped me happily, burned in ruthless flame. I too have found him, charmed in lovely forms, and run delighted to his distant voice, and pressed to him past many dreadful bars. If there is a yet happier, greater God, let him first wear the face of Satyavan, and let his soul be one with him I love. So let him seek me that I may desire.
Thank you.
Only one heart beats within my breast, and one God sits there throned. Advance, O death, beyond the phantom beauty of this world. For of a citizen I am not one. I cherished God the fire, not God the dream. But death once more inflicted on her heart the majesty of his calm and dreadful voice. A bride for hallucination are thy thoughts, a prisoner hailed by a spiritual cord. Of thy own sensuous will, the ardent slave, thou sendest eagle poised to meet the sun, words winged with the red splendor of thy heart. But knowledge dwells not in the passionate heart. Thy heart's words fall back unheard from wisdom's throne. Vain is the longing to build heaven on earth. Artificer of idea and idea, mind, child of matter in the warmth of life, to higher levels persuade his parents' steps. Inapt, thy fellow ill, the daring guide. But mind, a glorious traveler in the sky, walks lamely on the earth with footsteps slow. Hardly he can mold the life's rebellious stuff. Hardly can he hold the galloping hoofs of sense. His thoughts look straight into the very heavens. They draw their gold from a celestial mine. His acts were painfully a common all.
Thank you.
All thy high dreams were made by matter's mind to solve its dull work in matter's jail, its only house where it alone seems true. A solid image of reality carved out of being to prop the works of time, matter on a firm earth sits strong and sure. It is the firstborn of created things. It stands the last when the mind and life are sailing. And if it ended, all would cease to be. All else is only its outcome or its phase. Thy soul is a brief flower by the gardener's mind, created in thy matter's terrain plot. It perishes with the plant on which it grows. For from earth's sap it draws its heavenly hue. Thy thoughts are gleams that pass on matter's verge, thy life a lapsing wave on matter's sea. A careful steward of truth's limited means, treasuring her founded facts from the squandering power, it tethers mind to the tent post of sense, to a laden grey routine clamps of life caprice, and ties all creatures with the cords of law. A vessel of transmuting alchemies, a glue that sticks together mind and life. If matter fails, all crumbling cracks and falls. Upon matter stands all upon matter stand as on a rock.
Thank you.
In this security and guarantor pressed for credentials an imposter proves. A cheat of substance where no substance is. An appearance and a symbol and a knot. Its forms have no original right to birth. Its aspect of a fixed stability is the cover of a captive motion swirl, an order of the steps of energy's dance, whose footmarks leave forever the same signs. a concrete phase of unsubstantial time, a trickle dotting the emptiness of space, a stable seeming movement without change, yet change arrives, and the last change is death. What seemed most real once is Nihil's show. Its figures are snares that trap and prison the sense. The beginningless void was its artificer. Nothing is there but aspects limed by chance, and seeming shapes of seeming energy.
Thank you.
All by death's mercy breathed and live a while. All think and act by the inconscient's grace. Addict of the roseate luxury of thy thoughts, turn not thy gaze within thyself to look at visions in the gleaming crystal mind. Close not thy lids to dream the forms of gods. At last to open thy eyes, consent and see the stuff of which thou and the world are made. Inconscient, in the dumb, inconscient void, inexplicitly a moving world sprang forth. A while secure, happily insensible, it would not rest content with its own truth. For something on its nescient breast was born, condemned to see and know, to feel and love. It watched its acts, imagined a soul within. It groped for truth and dreamed of self and God. When all unconscious was, then all was well. I, death, was king and kept my regal state, designing my unwilled, unerring plan, creating with a calm, sentient heart.
Thank you.
In my sovereign power of unreality, obliging nothingness to take a form, infallibly my blind, unthinking force, making by chance a fixity like fates, by whim the formulas of necessity, founded on the hollow ground of the inane, the sure bizarrerie of nature's scheme. I curved the vacant ether into space, a huge expanding and contracting breath harbored the fires of the universe. I struck out a supreme original spark and spread its sparse ranked armies through the inane, manufactured the stars from the occult radiances, marshaled the platoons of the invisible dance. I formed Earth's beauty out of atom and gas, and built from chemic plasm the living man.
Thank you.
Then truth came in and spoiled the harmonious world. Matter began to hope and think and feel. Tissues and nerve bore joy and agony. The unconscient cosmos strove to learn its task. An ignorant personal God was born in mind, and to understand invented reason's law, the impersonal vast strove back to man's desire. A trouble rocked the great world's blind still heard. The nature lost her wide immortal calm. Thus came this rapt, incomprehensible sin of souls immersed in life's delight and pain, and matter sleeps and mind's mortality, of beings in nature's prisons waiting death, and consciousness left in seeking ignorance, and in evolution's slow arrested plan. This is the world in which thou movest astray. in the triangle pathway of the human mind, in the issueless circling of the human life, searching for thy soul and thinking God's is here.
Thank you.
But where is room for soul or place for God in the brute immensity of a machine? A transient breath thou takest for thy soul, born from a gas, a plasm, a sperm, a gene, a magnified image of man's mind for God, a shadow of thyself thrown upon space. Interposed between the upper and nether void, thy consciousness reflects the world around in the distorting mirror of ignorance, or upward turns to catch imagined stars. Or if a half-truth is playing with the earth, throwing its light on a dark, shadowy ground, it touches only and leaves a luminous smudge. Immortality thou claimest for thy spirit, but immortality for imperfect man, a God who hurts himself at every step, would be a cycle of eternal pain.
Thank you.
Wisdom and love thou claimest as thy right, but knowledge in this world is error's mate, a brilliant procuress of nescience, and human love a posturer on earth's stage, who imitates with verve a fairy dance, an extract pressed from hard experience, man's knowledge cast in the barrels of memory has the harsh savour of a mortal draught, a sweet secretion from the erotic glands, flattering and torturing the burning nerves. Love is a honey and poison in the breast, drunk by it as the nectar of the gods. Earth's human wisdom is no great proud power, and love no gleaming angel from the skies. If they aspire beyond earth's dullard air, arriving sunwards with frail waxen wings, how high could reach that forced unnatural flight? But not on earth can divine wisdom reign, and not on earth can divine love be found. Heaven born, only in heaven can they live, or else there too perhaps they are shining dreams.
Thank you.
Nay, is not all thou art and does a dream? Thy mind and life are tricks of matter's force. If thy mind seems to thee a radiant sun, if thy life runs a swift and glorious stream, this is the illusion of thy mortal heart, dazzled by a ray of happiness or light, impotent to live by their own right divine, convinced of their brilliant unreality. When their supporting ground is cut away, these children of matter into matter die. Even matter vanishes into energy's wake, and energy is a motion of old naught. How shall the ideal's unsubstantial hues be painted stiff on earth's vermilion blur? A dream within a dream come doubly true? How shall the will of the wisp become a star?
Thank you.
Ideal is a melody of the mind, a bright delirium of their speech and thought, a strange wine of beauty lifting thee to false sight, a novel fiction of thy yearnings made. Thy human imperfection it must share. It forms in nature, disappoint the heart, and never shall it find its heavenly shape, and never can it be fulfilled in time. O soul, misled by the splendor of thy thoughts, O earthly creature, with thy dream of heaven, obey, resigned and still, the earthly law. Accept the brief light that falls upon thy days, take what thou canst of life permitted joy, submitting to the ordeal of fate's course, suffer what thou must of toil and grief and care. There shall approach silencing thy passionate heart, my long calm night of everlasting sleep, there into the hush from which thou calmst retire. End of Canto 2.
Thank you. So we'll go back to the beginning.
Canto 2 of Book 10, Book of Double Twilight, the Gospel of Death and Vanity of the Ideal. Then pealed the calm, inexorable voice, abolishing hope, cancelling life's golden truths. Fatal his accent smote the trembling air. That lovely world swam thin and frail, most like some pearly, evanescent farewell gleam on the faint verge of dusk in moonless eves. Prisoner of nature, many vision spirit, thoughts creature in the ideal's realm, enjoying thy unsubstantial immortality. The subtle, marvelous mind of man has feigned this is the world from which thy yearnings came. When it would build eternity from the dust, man's thought paints illusion rounds. Prophesizing glories it shall never see, it labors delicately among its dreams. Behold this fleeing of light tasseled shapes, aerial raiment of unbodied gods. A rapture of things that never can be born, hope chants to hope a bright, immortal choir. Cloud satisfies cloud, phantom to longing phantom. Leans sweetly, sweetly is the clasped or sweetly chased. This is the stuff from which the ideal is formed. Its builder is thought, its base the heart's desire. But nothing real answers to their call.
Thank you. I'll just pause. So this first passage is referring back to this ideal world that was described in the previous canto, where all was beautiful and delightful, but fleeting, nothing lasting, disappearing just almost as it was formed. So death is saying, This is the source of your ideals. This is a result of thought and the subtle, marvelous mind of man has feigned, has kind of imagined or pretended to exist. This is the world from which thy yearnings came. And then he describes it further. When it would build eternity from the dust, man's thought paints images, illusion rounds, prophesying glories it shall never see. It labors delicately among its dreams. So he's suggesting that all of this love that you imagine, you feel this eternal love for Satyavan and these ideals towards which you strive, these ideals of God and goodness and truth, these are all just fleeting thoughts, nothing substantial in them. These prophecies that you have of a divine life, of all these great truths that you strive for, these are all things that you'll never really see. They're just imaginations of your mind.
Quite a common thinking. It's quite a common thinking.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's kind of the official philosophy of science that all is born from matter and into matter dissolves again. And as he'll say later, even matter is kind of unsubstantial and in the end kind of just an illusion or some kind of chance occurrence, fleeting, also not permanent in any real way. So it's all these, he says so beautifully, hope, chance to hope, a bright immortal choir, cloud satisfies cloud, phantom to longing phantom, leans sweetly, sweetly is clasped or sweetly chased. They're just kind of illusions chasing after each other, touching each other, enjoying each other for a moment. Its builder is thought, its base, the heart's desire. The heart is desiring these things to be true. But they're not. So let's continue.
I have one question. As Herbert also said, it's a common thinking.
step further, that even it is this, that even if it is fleeting and coming and going, but there is non-substantially stay on and will come. This is, what would be a Auroville position to this one, to this fleeting on the coming and going.
Yeah, for Sri Aurobindo, that's not the end of the matter. That maybe this is an appearance as things begin arising out of the inconscient. Maybe this is even the nature of material force as it appears to us. But it's not the end of the matter. As you say, these things form greater, more complex kind of structures. Matter coalesces, forms into stable elements which combine into stable molecules and eventually living forms. So there's a building up, an evolution into something. Yes. When we look at the electrons, yeah, they seem, we can't pinpoint exactly where they are. They always seem to be kind of moving, maybe even leaving the particle state and entering into some other state. But as evolution proceeds, there is some kind of stability that's there. Okay, we'll continue. The ideal dwells not, about 6 lines up from the bottom.
25. The ideal dwells not in heaven, nor on earth. A bright delirium of man's ardor of hope, drunk with the wine of its own fantasy. It is a brilliant shadow's dreamy trail. Thy vision's error builds the azure skies. Thy vision's error drew the rainbow's arch. Thy mortal longing made for thee a soul. This angel in thy body thou callest love, who shapes his wings from thy emotions' hues, in a ferment of thy body has been born, and with the body that housed it, it must die. It is a passion of thy yearning cells. It is flesh that calls to flesh to serve its lusts. It is thy mind that seeks an answering mind and dreams a while, but it has found its mate. It is thy life that asks a human prop to uphold its weakness lonely in the world, or feed its hunger on another's life. A beast of prey that pauses in its prowl, it crouches under a bush in splendid flower, to seize a heart and body for its food. This beast thou dreamest immortal and a god.
Thank you. This passage reminds me of Freud, who I think was contemporary with Sri Aurobindo. It was kind of the new psychological thought of the time. And he also had this kind of material basis, I think, for his ideas. But he also saw love and these higher ideals as kind of a sublimation of the desires of the body, the instincts for reproduction, and that these were just kind of refinements or buildings upon that basis. And so that was the kind of current thought of the time. So Sri Aurobindo is expressing, I think, that viewpoint. And of course, those images about thy vision's air builds the azure skies, thy vision's air drew the rainbow's arch. Those ideas were also coming up in the psychology of the time, of perception and how the mind creates these images. There was a deeper look into the processes of vision and how it operates, how it detects, the signals from outside and creates from those, let's say, energies, some kind of image of reality, of the physical universe that we see. It's not physical and substantial as it appears, but that's also a product of our mind that is building that on the basis of its reception of energies through the vision.
This line, thy vision's error builds the azure skies, and also the one next one. But this is also one of the first steps that a spiritual seeker from science point of view, even myself, I felt as I was growing up or even when I was seeking, that everything that appears on the surface is not the physical reality, is true. And Mother has spoken that everything is light, and originally there is only white light. And what we see as objects in the color, science tells that this object is a reflection because we have a different range from an owl or other animals who have different frequencies and they see differently according to their ranges. So our version of reality of the physical universe is distorted by not only the mind but all our senses. And what we see as green is because it is reflecting the green nature of color of light, which is the vital energy, the life field. And as we see in all the ranges of light and spirituality. So this actually was the first step for me to get away from the superstitious understanding of this matter is true. But then when Mother says it differently, she says everything is light, and this dispersion of light is what gives colors. But science says it in a different way also. And I feel for people who are seeking through science, they actually seek, if they are very sincere, they go to the truth beyond this.
Yeah, it's giving us a perspective of reality that's, in a sense, more true than what we just take it as normally, like, just everything is just the way it appears. And when we look at it more closely, it's not quite like that. But it was also interesting, what you remind me of too was some of Mother's perceptions when, she was undergoing this supermentalization, and she begins to sense that everything, it's like just these vibrations, right? And, or just kind of like particles in motion, or, vibrating. And then she can begin to perceive that it's all just one big field of these vibrations, and that you can move a vibration here and then it has its effects, throughout the entire field. So, all of those kinds of deeper realities are, in a way, are part of that too.
And then coming back to the Deutsche version of the material, but even then how they're often twisted, which I discovered. Also this angel in their body so close now. An angel is not better substantial. Even they argue with unsubstantial things.
Mm-hmm.
And this is often this twisting you find in the arguments.
Mm.
Science.
Yeah. Yeah, all these things we imagine in a way on the surface, or they're products of our mind, and that deeper reality we can overlook very easily. Science gets at some of it, but it doesn't get at the deeper sense of it, really. It just becomes, for it, because it has this material basis, is the ultimate reality, it views it as inconscient. Whereas Sri Aurobindo's Mother's view is that it's a product of consciousness, and it's all consciousness and movement of consciousness. And that makes an enormous difference. Shall we continue? One more.
O human mind, vainly thou torturest an hour's delight to stretch through infinity's long void and fill its formless, passionless gulfs, persuading the insensible abyss to lend eternity to perishing things, and trickst the fragile movements of thy heart with thy spirit's feint of immortality. All here emerges born from nothingness, encircled at last by the emptiness of space, a while upheld by an unknown force, then crumbles back into its parent naught. Only the mute alone can forever be. In the alone, there is no room for love. In vain to clothe love's perishable mud, thou hast woven on the immortal's borrowed loom, the ideal's gorgeous and unfading robe. The ideal never yet was real made. Imprisoned in form that glory cannot live, into a body shut, it breathes no more.
Thank you. So again, he begins saying that all of this is just imaginations of the mind. And he's suggesting just how much it exaggerates these things in order to kind of create some kind of eternal love and all these ideals out of nothingness, really, out of just to kind of fill that void so that one doesn't just feel empty and alone. So, but he's saying the reality is that all this crumbles back into its parent naught, into its original emptiness. And then he says, takes kind of a little bit different argument and says that the mute alone, only the mute alone can forever be. So he's saying he doesn't define what this alone is necessarily. It could just be nothingness, but even if it was a being or something substantial, in that there is no place for love. In oneness, there is no place for love for another. And that brings in, I think, an argument of some Vedantists who argue in that way, and the superiority of knowledge over bhakti. It's this oneness that is the aim of spiritual endeavor, to enter into that oneness, and in that oneness there is no love, there is no other to love. And then he just goes back again to this idea that the ideal, what you are imagining, it's unreal, and it will never become a reality here in this world. That unsubstantial ideal cannot be made a permanent, a real thing in this life, in this world. These are just your imaginations. Leave it. Accept reality, that these things do not exist.
I have also a question. Yeah, this is fine. It mentioned also that in one there is no other, because it's oneness. Then what would be the solution to find there is a oneness, and that means in the matter has to be related to all consciousness forms that it reach, that come together. What is how the oneness with the process in matter come together?
Well, I think in Sri Aurobindo's view, it's this oneness is an absolute, and that it's a consciousness, and it's a force, and it's an existence, but it is not constrained, because it's an infinite consciousness, it's not constrained to any particular state. It's not constrained to oneness. It can also self-limit itself, that oneness. It can create a multiplicity in its oneness. And this, in a sense, is matter becomes kind of a final result of that, when it differentiates itself into the minutest particles or energies. And because it can self-limit itself, it not be confined to oneness, it can have another. But even that maybe original other is its own, looking at its own force, looking at the results, the action of its own force and energy and consciousness. So that becomes kind of the original duality between Purusha Prakriti or Ishvara and Shakti, between the Lord and his conscious force, or between being and energy force. So the observer observes the workings of his energy. So that becomes the first other. But then that energy can create this vast multiplicity of existences. And then among them, all those multiplicities, there can be this many-sided relation, this infinite relation between the different beings, the different aspects of this one reality. They can all enter into relationship with each other and with the one, with the divine being who is the source of all. And there is the basis of bhakti. So let's leave it for today.
Then peals a calm, inexorable voice. This is the world from which thy yearnings came.
So thanks to Sri Aurobindo.